Have you ever pondered the chilling prospect of a World War III? A conflict that could arise from a multitude of triggers, stirring up global unease. In a world where nations are armed to the teeth with nuclear weaponry, the mere thought sends shivers down our spines. The ever-looming question is not just about the likelihood, but the magnitude of devastation that could ensue. But for us to fully grasp this grim possibility, we need to understand the power that lies within nuclear weapons. The atomic bomb, a weapon of mass destruction, is capable of unimaginable devastation. This isn't just a theory, but a harsh reality that our world has experienced in the past. But what exactly makes a nuclear bomb so powerful? It all starts with a scientific process known as nuclear fission. At the core of a nuclear bomb, heavy atomic nuclei like uranium or plutonium are split into smaller parts. This splitting releases an enormous amount of energy, which is what causes the bomb's devastating explosion. Just to give you an idea of the power of this explosion, consider this. The atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945, known as Little Boy, released energy equivalent to around 15,000 tons of TNT. That's equivalent to 15,000 fully loaded trucks exploding all at once, and that was one of the smaller nuclear bombs. Modern thermonuclear bombs, which use both fission and fusion reactions, are many times more powerful. The Tsar Bomba, detonated by the Soviet Union in 1961, was around 3,000 times more powerful than Little Boy. The effects of a nuclear explosion are also incredibly destructive. The initial blast destroys everything within a certain radius, while the intense heat causes fires that can spread over a wide area. Then, there's the radiation, which can cause immediate illness and long-term health problems for those who survive the initial explosion. The atomic bombs used in World War II caused immense devastation, killing hundreds of thousands of people, and leaving lasting scars on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These bombs served as a grim reminder of the destructive power of nuclear weapons and the horrifying potential of a nuclear war. Now that we understand the sheer force of a nuclear bomb, it raises even more alarming questions about a potential World War III. Today, several nations possess nuclear weaponry. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? Let's take a quick tour around the globe to familiarize ourselves with these nuclear nations. First stop, the United States and Russia, the two superpowers of the nuclear age. Both have been in the nuclear game since the mid-20th century, and they continue to hold the lion's share of the world's nuclear arsenal. Their weapons have the capacity to devastate entire continents, not just countries. Next, we journey to China, a country that has steadily been increasing its nuclear capabilities. While it doesn't have as many warheads as the US or Russia, it certainly has enough to cause significant damage. Our tour then takes us to France and the United Kingdom. Both countries have smaller arsenals, but don't be fooled. The nuclear weapons they do have are incredibly powerful. Moving along to the Asian subcontinent, we find India and Pakistan. These neighboring nations have a turbulent history, and the fact that both possess nuclear weapons adds a dangerous element to their rivalry. North Korea is another nation with nuclear capabilities. Though its nuclear program is shrouded in secrecy, there's no doubt that their possession of these weapons adds a layer of unpredictability to world politics. Finally, there's Israel, a nation that has never confirmed nor denied its nuclear capabilities but is widely believed to possess them. Now, having nuclear weapons doesn't necessarily mean a country plans to use them. These weapons are often seen as a deterrent, a means of discouraging other nations from attacking, but the mere existence of these weapons in so many places increases the risk of something going wrong: an accidental launch, a miscalculation, a miscommunication. These are just a few of the nations with nuclear capabilities. Several other countries have the capacity to develop nuclear weapons if they chose to do so. This proliferation of nuclear weapons sets the stage for a potentially catastrophic World War III. World War III, if it were to occur, would likely be triggered by escalating international tensions. Let's delve into the international conflicts and tensions that have the potential to escalate into a catastrophic global conflict. Imagine a world where the stakes are high and the tension is palpable. In such a world, even a minor incident could be the spark that lights the fuse of conflict. One of the most prominent sources of tension in our time is the ongoing dispute between the superpowers. These powerful nations are constantly jostling for dominance, their relationships strained by economic competition, territorial disputes, and ideological differences. The rivalry between these nations has the potential to spiral into a larger conflict, drawing other countries into the fray. Another potential trigger is the proliferation of nuclear weapons. More countries than ever before now have access to this devastating technology, and the desire to possess such a powerful tool can lead to dangerous escalations. The race to acquire nuclear weapons not only heightens tensions between nations, but also increases the risk of a destructive war. Terrorism also poses a significant threat. Terrorist groups operating on a global scale can provoke conflicts between nations either directly through their violent actions or indirectly by influencing the policies of nations. The fear and uncertainty that terrorism generates can push countries towards conflict as they seek to protect their interests and their people. Cyber warfare is a relatively new addition to this list, but it's a significant one. As our world becomes more digitized, the potential for conflict in the cyber realm increases. Cyber attacks can cripple a nation's infrastructure, causing widespread chaos and potentially triggering a retaliatory response that could escalate into physical conflict. These brewing conflicts remind us that the threat of a World War III is not as distant as we might hope. It's a chilling reminder of the fragile state of peace in our world and the need for constant vigilance to maintain it. The aftermath of a nuclear war would be cataclysmic. Imagine a world where the skies are shrouded in a nuclear winter, where the sun's warmth barely reaches the surface, and where the air is thick with radioactive particles. This is not the plot of a dystopian novel, but a potential reality following a large-scale nuclear war. Environmental impacts would be severe and long-lasting. The detonation of nuclear weapons would throw up vast amounts of dust and soot into the atmosphere. This would block out sunlight, causing temperatures to plummet globally, a phenomenon known as nuclear winter. This sudden drop in temperature would lead to crop failures and a dramatic loss in biodiversity. Our oceans too would not be spared. Radioactive fallout would contaminate marine ecosystems, leading to a collapse of many species and a disruption of the food chain. The economic consequences would be equally devastating. The immediate destruction of infrastructure, industry, and resources would lead to a global economic collapse. Rebuilding would be a gargantuan task, taking decades if not centuries and costing trillions of dollars. Economies would shrink, currencies would lose their value, and poverty would become rampant. Societal impacts too would be profound. The loss of life would be unimaginable. Survivors would face a harsh existence with limited resources, contaminated water, and the constant threat of radiation sickness. Healthcare systems would be overwhelmed, and many diseases thought to be eradicated could return. Furthermore, the social fabric would be torn apart. Trust among nations would be shattered, and the very idea of a global community might cease to exist. In the end, the survivors would inherit a world vastly different from the one we know today. A world where every day is a struggle for survival, where the scars of the war are etched into the landscape and into the hearts of those left behind. This paints a grim picture of what a post-World War III world could look like. The human cost of a nuclear war would be staggering. Imagine, if you will, the immediate loss of life following a nuclear detonation. Millions, perhaps even billions of lives extinguished in the blink of an eye. But this tragic tally is only the beginning of the human cost. In the aftermath of such an explosion, countless people would be displaced from their homes. Entire cities could be wiped off the map, forcing survivors to flee in search of shelter, food, and safety. This mass displacement would likely lead to a refugee crisis on a scale the world has never seen before. Now let's consider the long-term health effects of a nuclear conflict. Those who are fortunate enough to survive the initial blast would face a future fraught with danger. The fallout from a nuclear explosion can lead to a myriad of health problems, from severe burns and injuries to deadly radiation sickness. The radiation doesn't just disappear after the explosion, it lingers, contaminating the soil, the water, the very air we breathe. This could lead to an increase in cancers and other radiation-related illnesses for generations to come. The environment would also suffer. The nuclear winter that follows a nuclear war could lead to a dramatic drop in global temperatures, disrupting ecosystems, and leading to widespread famine. This, in turn, could lead to further loss of life and societal collapse. But the human cost of a nuclear war isn't just measured in lives lost, people displaced, or health effects. It's also about the loss of our humanity, our compassion, our ability to live together in peace. The psychological impact of such a conflict, the trauma, the fear, the loss, these are things that are harder to quantify but no less real or devastating. In the end, the human cost of a nuclear war is too great to fully comprehend. It's a price we cannot afford to pay. The human cost alone should give us pause when we consider the possibility of a World War III. Given the potential devastation of a World War III, the call for peace is more important than ever. Let's take a moment to think about this. We've walked through the unthinkable horrors of a nuclear war, the unimaginable human cost. But what if we could avoid this future? What if, instead of focusing on the potential triggers and devastation, we focused our energy on peace, diplomacy, disarmament, peacekeeping efforts? These are not just lofty ideals, they are practical tools in our arsenal against global conflict. They are the mechanisms by which we can navigate the complexities of international relations, diffuse tension, and promote understanding between nations. Diplomacy is our first line of defense. It's the art of resolving disputes through dialogue and negotiation, rather than through force. It's about finding common ground, understanding each other's perspectives, and working towards mutually beneficial solutions. Then we have disarmament. This is the reduction or elimination of weapons, particularly nuclear weapons, from a country's arsenal. It's about recognizing that the security of one nation should not come at the expense of another's. It's about acknowledging that a world armed to the teeth is a world on edge, a world where the threat of conflict looms large. And finally, peacekeeping. This is the deployment of international forces to conflict zones to maintain peace and security. It's about stepping in when local disputes threaten to escalate, about protecting civilians caught in the crossfire, about providing a buffer against violence. These three pillars, diplomacy, disarmament, and peacekeeping, are our best hope for preventing a World War III. They are the embodiment of a simple truth, that peace is not a passive state, but an active choice. It is something we must strive for, fight for every day. In the face of potential global conflict, the call for peace rings out loud and clear. It's a call to action, a call to responsibility. It's a call that we, as a global community, must answer. The future of our world may depend on our ability to prevent such a catastrophic event. As we've seen, a World War III and the use of nuclear weapons could result in unimaginable destruction. Entire cities could vanish in a flash of light, millions of lives lost in an instant, and the aftermath would leave our world in a state of chaos and devastation. The damage a single nuclear bomb can cause is immense, not to mention the long-term effects on our environment and human health. It's a sobering thought, but one we must confront if we hope to prevent such a catastrophic event from ever becoming a reality.